Good morning, students. This is Kullayappa. I am Assistant Professor, JNTA College of Engineering, Anantapuramu, in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. I am going to tell you about introduction to metrology for you. And in the introduction to the metrology point of view, so first of all, you should have to know what is the importance of the metrology. Metrology deals with the measurement system, and we require measurement system anywhere, and this measurement system will ensure you the quality of the product. For example, all the finished products has to check for its dimensions before it's going to install a particular product. So there we should have to check the dimensions of the product, and this is uh, very important, and we should have to ensure the quality whether this particular product is within the prescribed dimensions or not, so that we should have to check first. So that's why we should have to study the metrology. And now coming to the this particular class point of view, so I will cover the contents for three contents. So one is the definition of tolerance, and another one is sources of variation, and last point is the types of tolerance. Now before going to the talking about the definition of tolerance, we should have to know, as said earlier, so all the finished products are going to be checked for its dimensions to ensure the quality. But whatever the finished products that cannot be exactly going to get exact dimensions after finish. So there we should have to allow some sort of variation in the product. So this variation, the maximum allowable variation, is termed to be the tolerance. Okay, so all the products cannot be exactly manufactured to the exact dimensions, and we should have to allow some sort of variation, and that maximum allowable variation is termed to be the tolerance, such that the performance of the product does not affect. So that is the definition of the tolerance. And for example, when you look at this particular figure, okay, so whenever you want to produce a cylindrical product with a dimension of a diameter of 50 mm, so as said earlier, we cannot exactly manufacture to 50 mm, so we are going to allow some sort of variation or deviation. For example, okay, 40 plus or minus 0.05, so that for the upper limit point of view, so we will have 40 plus 0.05, that is 40.05 mm, and lower limit for the product will be 40 minus 0.05, that is 39.95 mm. So the original diameter of the particular product of 40 mm lies within this particular range. Though you produce n number of products within this range, that is 39.95 mm to 40.05 mm, so the function of the particular product does not affect. So this is the importance of giving or providing tolerance for a particular product. Next, as always, remember one point, that tolerance should be always a positive quantitative number. Okay, now so the tolerance for this particular product in the example is taken as the lower limit, the difference between the lower limit and upper limit, that is 40.05 minus 39.95, that is 0.1 mm, and the tolerance value will be always a positive value. So that is important point to be noted. So earlier we are talking about it is unable to produce any product with exact dimensions. So we should have to know about what are the reasons behind that. Okay, so that is termed to be, we consider to be sources of variation. Such with sources of variation point of view, we should have to talk about 4 different types of sources that are coming into picture for the variation of any particular product. Okay, so the first one is equipment, second one is material, third one is operator, fourth one is environment. Okay, apart from this, one more important point is also there, that is called the inspection equipment. Now when we talk about equipment point of view, so we should have to talk about few important points related to the equipment. So first point is tool wear. As we already know that after running of a machine running for a particular period of time, the tool get wear. Okay, so because of this tool wear, okay, the required surface finish of the product or required cutting does not comes into picture, so that this tool wear is going to be resulted in a sort of variation to a particular product. In another point is that machine vibrations. Okay, so because of the higher lower speeds point of view, so especially when we talk about very higher speeds, machine vibrations are going to be resulted, and because of this machine vibrations, the surface finish of the product, okay, and the dimensions of the product is going to be generally affected. So that is also one of the important consideration to talk about. And next we should have to talk about work holding devices. Okay, and from the work holding devices point of view, we should have to talk about, so how exactly you are going to fix the tool as well as work part in the work holding devices is very important. The accurate positioning of the tool and workpiece plays a very important role. If which does not done exactly, it is going to be produced a sort of variation to the dimensions of the product. And apart from that, we should have to talk about electrical and hydraulic fluctuations, which leads intermittent cutting of a particular product, which leads to a sort of dimensional variation. And second point related to sources of variation is material, and we should have to talk about some of the aspects such as the material properties point of view, that is ductility, tensile strength, etc. So we should how to design a product according to the its strength, okay, and according to the required ductility point of view, etc. But whenever you took the different type of material, okay, so that is a wrong selection of the material plays a very important role here, and it will lead to a sort of variation for you. Okay, and also the thickness of the material is one of the aspect. Okay, so the material size of the material or properties of the material that have taken not as required, that leads to a sort of variation obviously. And apart from that, the next third point related to the sources of variation, we should have to talk about operator. So when we talk about operator, operator should be physically and emotionally well-being. Okay, so because of exact physical condition and emotional point of view, it should be very much in control, okay, so that only he is going to operate the particular equipment according to the required conditions, okay. And if that does not comes exactly, so it will lead to a sort of variation to the dimensions of a product. And apart from that, we can talk about lack of understanding of the equipment, okay. So this might be resulted because of lack of training. The lack of training and lack of understanding of the equipment, both of them are mutually uh, very important to talk about. So we call it as the lack of understanding of the equipment or lack of training, so that the operating procedure is goes wrong, so that the particular dimensional variation comes into picture for any particular product, okay. So apart from that, injuries, so injuries may be uh, a sort of emotions going to lack, so that a particular operator might not operate well, so that it leads to a sort of variation. So apart from that, the next point is environment. So we should have to talk about temperature, humidity, light, radiation under such category. For example, when we talk about a temperature point of view, so the engine parts are generally given with a particular temperature limit. So if we go more than that particular temperature limit and operating a particular engine more than particular temperature limit, it leads to a sort of variation. So and humidity, light and radiation also having similar sort of effects, okay. So if uh, that does not operated with exact limit, it leads to a sort of variation. And apart from this, so we can say one more important point, that is inspection equipment. Inspection equipment point of view, we should have to talk about operator, inspection equipment, exactly, okay. So inspection equipment point of view, so different type of inspection equipment have different sort of capabilities to measure a particular product, and that should be actually the understanding of the operator is very important during such cases. So when we talk about a particular example point of view with related to inspection equipment point of view, so we should have to talk about too heavy reading on micrometer. So this too heavy reading on the micrometer leads to a sort of measurement variation, okay. So that is also one of the important point to talk about why the variation is resulted for a particular product. Next, as already said about tolerance, tolerance is the maximum allowable variation or deviation, okay, within which a particular product gives a satisfactory performance. And these tolerances, to represent it, we have two types to represent the tolerances. So one is we consider to be unilateral tolerance, and another one is a bilateral tolerance. So the unilateral tolerances are those where the variation of the product is allowed only one side of the product, okay, one side of the limit. It may be either a lower limit or upper limit. We are going to allow only one side of the limit, so that is called the unilateral tolerance, okay. So for example, when you see here, okay, so the 25 mm diameter with plus 0.1 and 0.18. So such case, the basic size, that is the exact required size, is 25 mm, whereas the lower limit of the particular product will be 25.10 and upper limit is 25 plus 0.18, that is 25.18 mm. So we are allowing only one side, that is only to the basic size, we are allowing only related to upper limit point. Whereas when we allow the same, that is when we want to produce a product with a diameter of 25, and we allow minus 0.1 and minus 0.2, that is towards the lower side of the limit. So the basic size will be always 25 mm, okay, and the upper limit will be the 24 minus 0.1, that is 24.90 mm. Lower limit will become 25 minus 0.2, that is 24.8 mm, and the tolerance is upper limit minus lower limit, that is 0.1 mm. And coming to the bilateral tolerance point of view, okay, so we are going to allow the variation or deviation to the both sides of the limit, okay, to the both the lower limit and upper limit we are going to allow the variation, okay. So here one important aspect to remember related to the unilateral tolerance and bilateral tolerance is that unilateral tolerance is much more preferred because of it is very easy to make to avoid the rejections of the parts, okay, during the time of the measuring particular dimensions point of view. So coming to the this one, okay, so for example, so see the figure here, that is 28 mm diameter plus or minus 0.2, which leads to an upper limit of 28 plus 0.2, that is 28.2 mm, whereas lower limit is 28 minus 0.2, that is 27.8. So the tolerance will become, as said earlier, upper limit minus lower limit, that is 28.2 minus 27.8, that is 0.4 mm, or we will say plus or minus 0.02 mm. That means we are going to allow the variation or deviation for the product to the both sides of the nominal size, okay, so that we are going to represent this particular product in the variation is allowed both the sides, and we are going to represent the same, okay. So thank you. This is the brief introduction related to what is called the metrology, the importance of the metrology, okay, what is called the definition of the tolerance, okay, and why, what is called the variation, and what are the sources for the variation, and similarly lastly the types of tolerance. We are talking about unilateral and bilateral tolerances. Thank you.